So you were expressing a desire to revisit the feelings wheel? Okay, we can do that. So, how would you say, in general, you're feeling today? Do you remember the categories on the feelings wheel? Okay. So, on this feelings wheel, I'm going to recap very quickly the different categories. Granted, of course, your feelings might be far more detailed and nuanced than can fit into the bigger categories, but we're going to see if we can kind of pinpoint exactly what it is that you're feeling, because oftentimes the more nuanced or complicated emotions are the ones that need the most defining. That way we can address it and at least recognize what you're feeling, because the confusion that comes with it oftentimes makes the feeling feel more overwhelming and consuming. So, the 7 categories of emotions that we have laid out here encompass feelings of fearfulness, feeling bad, as in just a general sense of malaise, feeling surprised, feeling happy, feeling sad, feeling disgusted, and feeling angry. So, when it comes to these 7 emotions, which do you think most closely reflects what you're feeling right now? Yeah. Oh. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. So, you would feel kind of more so in the angry or disgusted category. Is this correct? Okay, let's Okay. So, would you say that your feelings fall a bit more in feeling kind of awful or disappointed or disapproving, repelled even by someone or something, or even with yourself? Or would you say that you feel let down, humiliated, bitter, mad, aggressive, frustrated, distant, or critical? So disgusted is a bit more of you're running away from something because it just repels you, it disgusts you, you have an aversion to it. Meanwhile, with anger, there is a sort of attraction to wanting to dwell in the same spot and feel hostile towards it, kind of like you're wanting to stand your ground against a threat. Okay. So you're feeling more disgusted. Okay, interesting. Now, before we move on with the subcategory of disgust, if you notice, the subcategory of anger is quite big. It has a lot of subcategories. I think the only one that challenges it is happiness. There's, I think, a few more subcategories under happiness than there is under anger. But anger is a very common emotion, and it can have a lot of nuance to it, which is often very helpful to understand. That way we know specifically what exactly we're dealing with before we act upon it. So, as for disgust, we're going to recap the 4 different subcategories again. So, the first category we have is feeling disapproval. Feeling disapproval is feeling kind of like a sense of, it could either be a sense of having disapproval for someone in your company based off of how they behave, or having a sense of disapproval over perhaps something that you might have done that contradicts perhaps deeper held values. It could be a sense of not liking the environment or situation that you're currently in, finding that it might contradict not only your values but also just your taste, perhaps something that inspires a sense of, as previously mentioned, disgust. Feeling disappointed is a sort of, it's an outward emotion. Obviously, it's targeted towards someone else, but it can be targeted within. So you can feel a sense of disappointment with yourself when you fail to meet up to your standards, and this can cause feelings of dread within you because you start to wonder, well, what exactly does that say of me? And then you lose touch with kind of your self-concept or your self-image. Or you could feel disappointed by someone else based off of their decisions, whether it was them alleging to be one thing but turning out to be another, or feeling that they are behaving in ways that contradict your held values. So you can be disappointed in that respect as well. Feeling awful is just a sort of general sense of dread, I suppose. It's a sense of feeling sort of gross. It's a sense of feeling internally uncomfortable. It's a very just wriggly kind of feeling. You don't really quite know necessarily what it is that you're feeling awful about, but typically it's just something that makes you kind of resist being around anyone or anything in general, just because you don't want to aggravate that feeling of awfulness. And then naturally, you feel repelled. Typically, feeling repelled is just kind of like, it almost feels like a magnetic force, where when there's something that's just so heinous, much like a magnet, you almost feel pushed away from it and from the entire situation. You seek to avoid it. But this can give you a very sharp sense of wanting to kind of push yourself away from that sort of circumstance. So, which do you think reflects your feelings the most? From disapproving, which is more of like a cognitive action, to disappointed, which is just kind of being let down, to awful, which is just sort of this consuming sense of everything is kind of repellent around you, to repelled, which is that there is something that's kind of pushing you away from it. You're feeling more disappointed? Okay. Well, underneath we get disappointed, we have two last subcategories. These two last subcategories include feeling appalled and feeling revolted. Now, when you're appalled, that's more so the sense of shock or surprise you feel when someone acts in a way that you did not expect, when someone lets down your expectations. When you're appalled, it's typically a value judgment where if someone fails to meet up to your standards, then you are almost kind of frozen or paralyzed in your perception of them, your engagement with them. When you feel revolted on the other hand is more so this feeling of someone behaving or acting in a certain way that just provokes a visceral sense of disgust. It's just like this absolute repulsive act where you just feel disgusted by them. So, hence the name revolted. You feel disgusted by something or someone. Meanwhile, appalled is more so you're in shock of something or someone. So, which do you think you feel more closely? A sense of shock, which still lets you down? Or a sense of revulsion, where you're just kind of disgusted by something that you didn't expect to be disgusted by? Okay. Kind of like a mixture of the two. Interesting. Well, at least we now narrowed down the cause and effect of your feelings. I'm sure that you probably felt appalled at first, feeling that, someone let you down, and then after that disappointment you felt a sense of revulsion towards them. But that revulsion is typically educational, where then you learn deeper elements to people and you start to be a little more insightful, not necessarily cautious, but a little more insightful. Anyways, I'm glad that you could join me in this feeling wheels chart. I hope that this helped you figure out your feelings a bit more again. And once again, if you care, please do visit me again and we'll examine your feelings at a later time. Okay? In that case, take care.